Again, welcome. Today is April 25th, and it's Angelo Spotted Eagle's birthday. Yay! Happy birthday, Angelo Spotted Eagle! Over in Billings. I hope you have a great day and looking forward to seeing you soon. Today, we're going to talk about a book by James Willard Schultz and Frank Schoonover, and it is called Rising Wolf, the White Blackfoot. And it's Human Rose's story of his first year in the plains with the Blackfeet. A little bit about the introduction here. It says he died. This is Human Roe, Rising Wolf, right? He died in his 98th year, and we buried him in the Two Medicine Valley, under the shadow of the cliffs over which he had so many times helped the Pecunny stampede herds of buffalo to their death, and in sight of that great sky-piercing height of red rock on the north side of the Two Medicine Lake, which we named Rising Wolf Mountain, Rising Wolf Mountain. It is a fitting monument to the man who was the first of his race to see it and the great expanse it overlooks. And again, this is Human Rose's story of his first year on the plains. With the Hudson Bay Company. You ask me for the story of my life. My friend, it would fill many volumes, for I have lived a long life of great adventure. But I am glad. You shall have the story. Let us set it forth in order. So I begin. I was born in Three Rivers Settlement, province of Quebec, July 9th, 1798. My father was Captain Hugh Monroe of the English Army. My mother, Amelia de la Roque, daughter of a noble family of French immigrés. Her father owned a fine mansion in Montreal and the large estate in the Three Rivers, where my father lived with her, what time he was not with the regiment or on some expedition. My childhood days were quiet enough. I played with the children of our peasantry. A Jesuit father resident with us taught me a smattering of reading and writing in both French and English. And presently I got a gun, a beautiful, light, smooth bore, carrying 30 balls to the pound. From that time on, it was always the gun with me. I ceased playing with the peasant children and spent most of my time hunting in the great forest surrounding the settlement. In my 12th summer, I killed my first deer. I shot two black bears when I was 13, and oh, how proud I was of that. An old pensioner of my mother, a half-breed Montañez Indian, too old and feeble to do much himself, taught me to trap the beaver, the otter, the land fur bearers, the fox, fisher, marten, and mink, and I caught many of them. Every spring my grandfather de la Roche sold the pelts for me in Montreal for a good price. One winter cash, I remember, bringing me in 30 pounds, which was a large sum for a boy to earn in a few months' time. After the beginning of 1812, I saw little of my father, for then, began the war between the English and the Americans, and he was with his regiment here and there, took part in several battles. It was in the autumn of that year that my grandfather sent for us to move into Montreal and live with him. I did not like the town. I could neither hunt nor trap. I had little to do with the town boys. I did not understand their ways, so different from my ways. Mornings I attended the parish school. Afternoons I rode on the river or visited the warehouse of the Hudson Bay Company, with which my grandfather had much to do. There I met voyagers and trappers from far places, men dressed all in buckskin clothes with strangely fashioned fur caps on their heads and beaded moccasins encasing their feet. Some were French, some were English, the one race having little to do with the other. But that made no difference to me. I made friends with both factions and passed many, many pleasant hours listening to their tales of wild adventures, of fights with Indians, encounters with fierce bears of the far west, and of perilous canoe trips on madly running rivers. This is the kind of life I want to lead, I said to myself. Young as I was, began to importune my mother to allow me to engage with the great company. At first she laughed at me, but as winter and summer and winter went by, and I never ceased my entreaties, not only to her but to my grandfather, and to my father when he visited us, it became a matter not to be dismissed with idle jests. And at last I had my way. He was born for the adventurous life and nothing else, said my father. So we may as well let him begin now and grow up to a responsible position with the company. Who knows, but he may some day become a governor. It was my mother who objected to my going. Many a tear she shed over the little traveling kit she prepared for me and made me promise again and again that I would return to her for a visit at least at the expiration of my apprenticeship of the company. It was a fine kit that she got together for me. Changes of underclothes, many pairs of stockings, several pairs of boots, and all and needles and thread, a comb, a brush and a razor strap, a brush and soap. You will need the razor later on. Oh, just think, my boy will be a bearded man when he returns to me. Not if I can keep the razor. I despise whiskers, mustaches. They are unclean. I shall keep my face smooth, I told her, and I have done so to this day. When the time came for my going, my father gave me a brace of silver-mounted pistols in holsters for the belt, and plenty of balls and extra flints for them. My grandfather gave me 20 pounds and a sunglass. There are times when flint and steel are useless, but as long as the sun shines, you can always make fire with this. He told me, little did we think what an important part it was to play in my first adventure upon the plains. At last the day of my departure came. We had breakfast by candlelight, and then my grandfather took us and my kit down to the wharf in his carriage. I went into the office and signed articles of apprenticeship of the Hudson Bay Company for 5 years at 20 pounds per year, and found my father and mother signing as witnesses. Whereupon the chief clerk gave me a letter to the factor to whom I was to report without undue delay, Factor James Hardesty, at Mountain Fort, Saskatchewan River, foot of the Rocky Mountains, the company's new fort built for the purpose of trade with the little-known tribes of the Blackfeet, said to be a very numerous people and possessors of a vast hunting ground teeming with beaver and other fur animals. My mother almost fainted when she learned how very far away was my destination. She wept over me, kissed me many times, and made me promise again and again that I would return to her at the end of the 5 years, and so we went from the office to the end of the wharf where were the 5 big keel boats of the company, all loaded and manned by the sturdy French and English voyagers, and I got into one of them with my kit, smooth bore in hand, and pistols at my belt, and the men cast off and bent to their oars as far as I could see them. My father and mother and grandfather kept waving their handkerchiefs to me, and I waved mine to them. I never saw them after that day. It was May 3rd, 1814, about 2 months short of my 16th birthday. As I have said, there were 5 boats in the flotilla. Each one was loaded with 4 or 5 tons of goods for the Indian trade, everything being done in waterproof packages of about 100 pounds weight. The heavy goods were mostly guns, powder and ball and flints, tobacco, beads, beaver traps, and brass, and copper wires for making bracelets and finger rings and axes, and copper and brass kettles of various size, and small hand mirrors. The lighter goods comprise blankets, red, blue, yellow woolen cloth, needles, awls, thread, and the many other articles and trinkets sure to take the red man's fancy. Not a very valuable cart, you may say, nor was it there in Montreal, but at the mountain foot of the Rocky Mountains, it would be of enormous value. There a gun was worth 60 beaver pelts, 60 pounds worth of fur, and all the other articles sold in the same portion. Why, a yard of tobacco, it was in long twists like rope, sold for 2 beaver skins. And this is a picture. He says, how strange it was for me, a boy, to be in the prow. Hugh Monroe in the prow. So we'll continue this story next chapter tomorrow.